How are we all doing? Enjoy your butties? So, where am I? Oh, that was you.
That was me.
And this is us. So, yes, hello everyone, my name's Tom. I'm the Dad Matters Coordinator for Halton. I recognise quite a lot of you in this room, which is great, and I also don't recognise some of you, which is equally as great, because I've always wanted to meet new people. So I've, where are we? There we go. So these are the kind of aims of this presentation, an introduction to Dad Matters, who we are, what we do, what the offer is for Halton Dads, and I guess any questions and discussion at the end. So, like I said, I've been coordinating for Halton since October. I've been commissioned by the Family Hubs to deliver Dad Matters through the borough. There hasn't been a dad-specific initiative like this in Halton before, so we've launched this service off a bit of a standing start. But the early signs have been very, very positive, and the initial feedback is it's a much-needed service in the area, which I and obviously a lot of you would probably agree with. So Dad Matters was created in 2017 by Kieran, who's very, kindly joined us today. And he's probably, loving the fact that how nervous I am. But the joke's on him, I'm actually fine. So, So Kieran and Homestart Host in Greater Manchester set about the task of creating a dad-centred antenatal and perinatal support offer to essentially match and beat that offer to mums, but delivered in a way that is accessible and engaging for dads. So it sounds simple enough, but we all know that dads are very tricky. Kieran and the team undertook extensive on-the-ground research to gauge firstly what dads need from the service, just as importantly what dads aren't looking for and would benefit from. In taking this approach, Dad Matters was tailored to fill the existing gap in the antenatal and perinatal offer, while also implementing unique and first-of-its-kind initiatives with a focus around the education of dads and professionals alike. So the core values of Dad Matters are around providing dads information and support, around attachment and bonding, dad and partner mental health, and help in accessing appropriate services when they're needed. Because as many of you know, being a dad or a parent or a carer for that matter, it comes with a range of emotions, doesn't it? A lot of feelings. You want to laugh, you want to cry, you sometimes want to vomit uncontrollably. But the fact is, we aim to make every contact point with dads centred around one or more of these core values, and every contact point with professionals around raising awareness of the importance of these values in their own roles. So we deliver the service in three main ways. So Universal encompasses everything from outreach at Family Hubs to our own walk and talks and stay and plays, and right through to online and in-person new dad workshops and resource distribution. We work with professionals around training, developing their own service and more. And lastly, we offer flexible one-to-one support, which importantly can be in person or remote, and around the main Dad Matters facets of attachment and bonding, mental health and accessing services. So the idea is that we can fit around dad no matter what their situation, whatever their schedule. We want to be there where they are and when they need us. Referrals for one-to-one support can come direct from dad as a self-referral or through yourselves as professionals. And the referral criteria is simply that the dad's main address is in Halton, they're expecting a child or have a child under 2, and they will benefit from peer support or education around those key aspects. So it was a little bit of a whistle stop, but I'd just like to close off by just playing a quick testimonial from one of our Warrington volunteers who struggled himself. He's not only a great volunteer for us, he's a really great guy, Jay. But in doing the volunteering side of things for us, it's really helped him out, so I'm hoping that this will play.
Hello, I'm Jay, a volunteer for Dad Matters. I first got involved with Dad Matters because when my 2 daughters were born, I struggled quite a bit. I felt like I wasn't listened to, felt like it was all about mum. And as much as I appreciate what mum went through, because she went through an awful lot, everyone was asking about mum and baby. No one bothered to say, how are you? As a dad, how are you? And it hurt, and I struggled mentally with that. Having Dad Matters there, not only does it support other dads, but it supports me as well. And I know I've always got someone there for me if I'm struggling, whether it's mentally or I just need a bit of advice really. And it gives the opportunity for me and my son to do something together. I just feel like Dad Matters is crucial for every dad in this country to have that support and just someone to talk to understand what they're going through. It's, like I say, it's just amazing. And thanks for listening. Thanks very much.
So now I'll pass you on to Holly from NCT Parents in Mind, who can sort of carry on the conversation around their side of the offer. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. I've been trying not to sit down today because I've been like an excitable Jack Russell at the back, because everything's coming all at once today, and usually we get drip fed the dad stuff, don't we? And you're just absorbing it here and there when you can and things like that. And just to see it all on one day and everybody so up for it, some proper evidence-based lived experience, people that know their stuff as well, just making it actually like the front and centre. It's actually quite emotional, I think, to see. So I've been like this at the back, like, come on, hold it together. So I'm Holly from Parents in Mind. Oh, I pressed the button. There we go. And I'm representing Jonathan today, who's actually leading the Dads and Partners service for Halton and St Helens. And he started at the same time as Tom, and I haven't seen a more collaborative approach between two services, which is absolutely brilliant. They are in each other's pockets, emails, Teams, inboxes, and it's absolutely fabulous to see them take this approach so confidently and as such a team, really, with the same outlook of just, we reach the dads, we give them the offers, and we see what works best for them. They can have it all, they can have a little slice, whatever they want, but these two people together, honestly, they're a force to be reckoned with. But we offer very similar services, but we're trying to take two different approaches, and that's why the Family Hubs have funded us both to kind of make sure that we are reaching dads where they are in all the places, to try and say support is available in so many different options, which bit would fit you in the now, which bit you want to move through. So we're focusing really on that peer support, volunteer-led from a lived experience perspective, but more of that remote side. So our support is focusing around Zoom calls in the evening. So we have a group that runs on a Monday evening, and that Zoom group doesn't start until 9 o'clock at night. So sometimes that can be the slot that you get that's most appropriate when kids are in bed, when maybe you've helped out in the house, you've come down after work and things like that. We've also got a 24/7 WhatsApp group. And for a lot of everybody with those red tapes, that sounds like, oh, what do you mean 24/7? But yeah, it is, because when those challenges arise, and it may be 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it isn't very often 3 o'clock in the morning, because they have that understanding that there are volunteers at the other end of that WhatsApp. But it could be at various times of the day, on the lunch break, walking the dog when you get that moment. It can be, just after the school run, and throwing that challenge or that feeling onto the WhatsApp group, where a load of other dads are going to read it and fire something right back at you to kind of decompress, to just give you something to chew the fat on, to even say, let's talk about it later on the Zoom. It just gets it out there, and the dads really, more than any of our support, use that WhatsApp more than ever. And it's wonderful when you see the actual service users supporting each other as well. And then similar to Tom, everybody is allowed to have that one-to-one support if that's what best suits. That can be flexibly done as well around working times, or around when baby is sleeping, or when you've done all that helping out as well. It's about, for us as dad services together, meeting dad where he best has those gaps, time and places for him to have a place for himself as well. So we use the phrase, don't we, all the time, of how it takes a village, and in Halton that village definitely includes dads now. The picture on the top left, that is a picture of some of our dads in St Helens that decided to go and climb a mountain and stay up the mountain, which of course all our commissioners and our people that are making sure they do the risk assessments were like, what? You know, there is a mountain of stuff to also climb in terms of that. But they were adamant. These volunteers were like, no, we are doing this because this is a triumphant place that we're at. A lot of the dads in service have climbed mountains, well-being mountains, mental mountains, and they want a hurdle to climb to celebrate that as well. So in that picture there, we have, and I won't point at who is who, but we have somebody that has schizophrenia. We have somebody that has relied on alcohol and gambling, and they've had tense times. We've got somebody that is a stay-at-home dad, and we've got somebody that's recently gone through a divorce as well. But together, they have that commonality of saying, we're still doing it, we're still here, we're still trying to make sure that we are fulfilling all the needs of the family, providing, but actually, we're allowed to remember ourselves, and that's not selfish and all of that as well. So when people think, what does this WhatsApp group look like? What does this Zoom space look like? It isn't about everybody sat there going, you know, how depressed are you? How anxious are you? They aren't the words that everybody is using. It's about all those words that fall into the gap. And I think when we're asking those questions, we can ask it as just one-liners, can't we? When people are having those checks, or it is a question that's thrown their way. But what about the feelings that fall into the gaps? What about the frustration? And you guys have mentioned hopelessness and anger popping up a lot. And that's why we've included that quote on a lot of our leaflets, flyers and banners, is because let's not sugarcoat it. These are the real feelings. Some of those WhatsApp messages that pop up are because dad has punched a hole in the wall because he's got so angry at the fact that the child has broken the TV just through playing something really nice, and he's had to take himself away, gone upstairs and punched that hole in the wall. That's a real thing that's happening. It's not about hiding this stuff. It's about being honest. And these are the kind of places that we want to make sure that fathers have, where you can be real, you can be filter free, you can be raw, and that doesn't mean that you're not the best person to be a father to that child. It just means that actually maybe you've not got some space for you, maybe you've not got the tools that you need, maybe there's more that can be put in place, and that's why it does take a village to bring you that space and bring you that information as well. We do take formal scoring, but what's been really refreshing is hearing how that's not nailed down as well, because I think when you are, you know, given funding, when you are commissioned stuff, there's certain, you know, lines that you have to be providing for services and make sure that we are measuring things, but it's really hard sometimes to get dads to complete all of the data stuff and to make sure that they are filling things out, and that takes different approaches and creative approaches as well. It's not as simple as going, well, before you access this, we need to make sure we've got some pre-scores of you. You can't just expect that thing is going to be done either. You have to approach that in different ways. It may be best just done on the phone. It's about trying again to make sure that you are providing a service, but at the same time you're not adding to the overwhelm and the to-do list, because to access peer support is not meant to be another thing that's going to add to your worries and your forever rolling, you know, arm's length to-do list of things to do. You want this to be a good thing, a positive thing. So we do all have to think about how we can creatively approach that. And if that means that we can complete referrals or connections, you know, connecting that person with a service, we feel it's really important that if you can complete those referral forms for that person, take away that extra to do, or even the fact that you need to know that you can just drop a text to Tom, to Jonathan, and actually they will run with it from there as well, and they will collect everything they need for that father to be able to access what they want and, you know, assess which service feels best suited to them as well. I really wanted to play you some of the podcasts that we're working on a series 2 at the minute, which I know a couple of you in the room have very kindly said that you will be part of that as well. And if you've not, there's some of you that might not know and you're going to be on it. But we want to make sure that, again, that's part of the engagement tools on understanding what is available nationally, locally, just normalising, getting rid of some of that stigma that these conversations can happen, are valid, are allowed to happen. You are allowed to feel like this as well, and not underestimating how hard, which was wonderful to hear that 50% of mothers struggling, their actual partners, you know, will feel that too in some form. They might not recognise that, you know, they are struggling with their well-being. They might not use those wordings around it, but it is going to affect you, and it is going to be heavy in your life when you're looking after a little person as well. So I thought we'd play you 2 clips of our podcast that was from series 1, and these are the volunteers that are at the other end of those groups. So they're the actual people that are opening the Zoom calls and opening those spaces, and really the groups are The conversations is very much about them offering a little bit of a vulnerable side of something they went through. They're through the other side now. Doesn't mean, the hurdles aren't any less and aren't there, but it does mean that their perspective of how they view themselves and how they view the family, or even reaching out to people and asking for help, that's what's changed along the way. And that's what's made a difference to how they approach those hurdles and how they value themselves as a father and how important they are to the family dynamic as well. So I'm going to play you 2 clips. They're literally just a minute long or so, but also the fact that the 2 clips that I've picked are really the general conversation that is really happening every single week. And again, to hear that how the relationship conflicts and how that changes, to hear that emphasised, that's why I was like, oh, it feels so good hearing these words are actually not just happening from us like leading services that are just from experience. We don't have all that research from across the country or in other countries, but this is what we're seeing in front of us, and you start to see themes and patterns going on as well and start thinking, wow, I wonder how that's linked. And especially with parents in mind, because we're also sometimes supporting mum at the same time, and mum might actually be separated from dad, and they might have separated while they were in service with each other, or they might have suggested the service to each other while they were going through divorces and separations as well. You hear how much of a change and how much resentment has built, how much conflict has built as well, where I listened to a podcast that Scott did this week, and I've actually shared it with a few different people of just the line that he said, and it was around how when you have a child, somebody said that you're not just meeting one person for the first time, you are meeting 3 different people, and that's your partner, because you may not have met them as a mother before. It's yourself, because you might not have been a father or even been a father to 2, 3, 4 children before, and you're meeting this new little person. There is so much change going on, and then you've got to go back to work. You might have been in this bubble. It might have been a great bubble. There's a lot of things that are changing all the time, and sometimes that distance grows so much that it's really hard for parents to come back together and support each other in that moment. And a lot of the conversations that are happening in that Zoom space on a Monday night are around that resentment, that misunderstanding of each other, feeling like one person deserves maybe the support more than the other, and the other one isn't allowed to do that, and it bounces back and to all the time of that. I've shared a story with a few of you in this room before, when we've talked about our ugly moments ourselves. And when I became a mum, I definitely took over the star of the show kind of place, had a poorly child, was at Alder Hay for a very long time. I also grew up in quite a domestic abusive home. My partner didn't have a mother growing up, so we were like, mother, dad, we are so important. We're not going to shout. We're not going to ever have arguments in front of our child, because we never want them to feel like we felt as children or anything like that. And fast forward to, we had a lovely bubble in Alder Hay. As it can sound very traumatic down on paper, but actually we'd never worked stronger together. I couldn't change the baby's nappy. I couldn't hold her. Every time I touched her, she flinched, so I just found it easier to just step away. When she was having drug cycle come downs as well, I just didn't know how to comfort my own baby, and my partner really stepped into that and was able to do all those things and felt so useful, helped me feed by putting all the labels on the bottles for the freezer. We were really together. And then we got home, and my partner had a really quite high pressure job where a lot of other Halton dads were relying on him to pay their wages, and he had to go back to work. And the guilt that he felt was, I'd never seen my partner cry before, but the day he had to leave us at Alder Hay was the first time I'd saw him cry. And when we got finally back home was actually when my loneliness really set in, and my emotional regulation was horrendous. I threw blinds out the window, I ran after the car down the road, I was explosive, like horns out the head kind of style. And on this one day, I was actually training as a volunteer, and I was desperate to use my brain for something else, because I used to watch my daughter's breathing. I was so like red light on standby all the time that I couldn't rest unless I was away from her. And that felt like, well, when you get to go to work, you get to have a day off. Like, that must be a day off. You get to drink cups of tea. You get to, talk to grown-ups and wear grown-up clothes. That resentment was like fully there at the front, almost like when he got in from work, I would be like, kind of thing. He was getting it from all angles from me. I was horrible. I was really, really bad at that time. And when I got to go and have this space where I was doing my volunteer training, it was when we did it face to face, and I got to calm down, have this time with this lovely group of women. You come back and skip home. And this one day where I was trying to be on time, you talk about time, that stress. And I left my handbrake off the car as well at a children's centre in Halton, and it rolled down the hill, the really hilly one as well. So if that building's probably still unstable, this is how much I was not at all on my game, but he was having to pick up my pieces so much, and there was no space for him at all around what my needs were. And this one day when I was heading to volunteer training, my daughter was sat on my knee. I was trying to pop her little shoes on, and her nappy had moved to the side. And of course, she'd done a big poop, and it was all down my leg. And I was trying to be on time. We had 1 pack of baby wipes left as well, because we had an Asda shop coming later. And I knew I'd left them on the stairs halfway up. So I was like, quick, let's get changed kind of thing. Let's clean up and off we get. We're going to be 5 minutes late. Could I find those baby wipes? No, because he'd been helpful and moved the stuff off the stairs for me, but at a place where I couldn't find it at all. And I rang him and was literally like, you have got it in for me. Like, I let all my anger down that phone. And what did he do? He put the phone down on me. Ooh, it blew up even worse. I was like coming over that bridge, like full on voice note, I hate you. Like every bit of anger that I felt, I'd let out and was coming out, and he kept putting the phone down on me, or he just there was no blue ticks, basically. Then did my training in the children's centre, like came down from it decompressed, coming back over the bridge, tail between my legs, a bit like, got home, how was your day? You know, like, have a cup of tea. And he sat down and he said, I was saying, you know, I really apologise for what I said, kind of thing. Absolutely, shame bell was ringing. And then he said, I couldn't pick up the phone, and I had to put the phone down on you because the police were stood next to me because work was robbed in the night. And I was giving a statement. And I was like, they must have been on their way to arrest me, kind of thing. Because it was awful. But these are the real moments in the house where you are like, do you know what? The two different pressures that we are feeling as parents are both equally as valuable. I couldn't be at home with my child, or, you know, volunteering in something I've lived through and feel really passionate with. If you didn't have that time to go out and do that and give me that space to do that and then come back and do the baby and all this teamwork, but our pressures are so different but equally as valuable to the family. And it was our proper smack in the face moment of going, those baby wipes in my life in that moment were the most important thing. I needed that to leave the house, to get what I needed, to clean up the little girl that was sat there like, what do I do? And then my partner needed to be able to put his headspace into the thing that was paying our bills right now, to be able to do that and fulfill the needs of what work was right then and there. And we've kind of, it's been 16 years now, you know, and we're still going strong, and the devil kind of comes out a little bit, but we both know what to do. But the fact is that he was struggling through all of that, and yet I was the limelight and never allowed that. And he needed a space where he could talk about the devil within me, like, and talk to that without me, you know, feeling embarrassed that he was talking about my struggles with somebody else as well, and kind of putting a filter on him to say, no, you don't tell people about my dirty secrets. Actually, he very much needed a place to be able to talk about that stuff. And that's a lot of what happens in our Zoom group, is what I was getting to the point of. So I would love, and now you know my dirty secret. So there's 1 minute of each clip, just so you can see the faces who are at the other end of this. And I know I've ruined all your perceptions of me. How would I press play on this? It's just till 2 minutes, 5 seconds.
Nailing super dad or super mom in those first few weeks and months. It depends how you judge yourself. Like, I always thought I wasn't good enough. I've never had that sense that I was good enough, which probably did lead me to feeling overwhelmed. And I do remember having elements of just heightened awareness and anxiety. Like, what if we fall in the river? What if someone tries to steal him? What if? And all these like weird anxious thoughts would kind of pop in my head, and it was all around something was going to go wrong. And I found that really overwhelming. And I think looking back, that was a real like trigger moment for me. It was just feeling like something was going to go wrong. I think the practical and the financial stuff was what I found overwhelming at the start, whereas now I feel more established and more confident in those areas. I guess for me it's more about the existential overwhelm in like the way the world is now, and what do we want to do with our future now? What does the next 5 to 10 years look like? Because so much has happened in the last 5 years that we weren't even aware of. The only advice I would give anyone feeling the overwhelm is...
One is from Rob, who's one of our volunteers, and he's talking about his separation and divorce that actually had a real impact on his relationship with the child and how he viewed himself as well, with a lot of guilt. So this clip is just until till 1946.
You came to Parents in Mind to be a mentor to dads who have struggled with their mental health or are struggling now with their mental health. Do you mind telling us, I mean, what kind of difficulties you had? And I'm assuming it's around this time that when you separated.
Yeah, do you know what it is? It's when you get thinking time. It's when you've got time to yourself and all of a sudden you're on your own. You come home from work, your child's not there, so you're thinking, I'm on my own, what do I do? What do I do with my life now? Where do I go from here? You know, like we said earlier on, as soon as your child, Liam, was born, my life changed. I kind of like lost contact with all my friends, you know, things like that in my life. I stopped playing football, so that went out the window, and I looked around and I thought, my mates are all off doing stuff. I've spent the last 7-8 years of my life living in this bubble, you know, and it's all of a sudden, it's like, what do I do? And I started struggling because I was overthinking all the time, you know, and I don't know, I threw myself into my work. I just started working as much as I could, just to keep my mind off it. I didn't want to go home some nights because I thought, I'm going to go home and be on my own. And I think that's where dads, because it's the not knowing that does you. I found it's the not knowing what's going on with your son, you know. And at first it was like paranoia. Is she feeding him? Who's she got round the house? You know, who's seeing him when I'm not? You know, things like that. And it can eat away at you. It drives you mad.
How did you navigate through that? I mean, what things, you said you worked a lot, what other things helped you at that time?
I used exercise. My thing is exercise. If I'm feeling a bit low, I'd bike it to work, I'd come home, I'd get home from work, get changed and go out for a run. And then I'd come home and I'd try and keep myself tired. Does that make sense? Because that kept my mind occupied and stuff like that. I think, right, if I'm always doing something, I can't think about something and I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
Thank
So what's
you.
your mind thinking of when you cycle?
And really that's kind of how the groups run. That's how they start their conversations, just sharing a little bit about what they found hard and then a little bit about what everybody else is finding hard. So if you have any dads that you think would find that remote support useful after work in the evenings, please come find Jonathan or Tom. Where you'll find one, you'll probably find the other as well. But thank you very much. Oh, and squeeze your balls.